Hello everyone, this is Saurabh Sharma. In this video, we will be talking about there is one important topic for your prelims and your mains perspective. The topic is related to the environment and ecology, and it is focusing on the coastal element of the environment system or the geological system in India. The topic name is the Coastal Vulnerability Index, right? This is important because we have to understand that what are the issues in this context and why this coastal vulnerability index has come up to be discussed by us, right? Or like it is given in the newspaper. The context here is that Indian National Center for Ocean Information Services, that is INCOIS, has carried out coastal vulnerability assessment. So it was carried out by INCOIS. And INCOIS is Indian National Center for Information Services, for Ocean Services, right? It has carried out coastal vulnerability assessment for entire Indian coast at the state level to bring out an atlas comprising 56 maps that so and so scales to prepare a coastal vulnerability index. This index is important because we should know that what are the issues in our coastal regions, what are the vulnerability from the perspective of the cyclones, the wave heights, the sand concentration or the quality, water level, the flood situation, cyclonic vulnerability, and so and so. So if you just look at your screen, the screen is showing different elements where it is talking about the climate change, it is talking about the rapid economic development, it is talking about the lack of regulations, talking about the rapid population growth. That means all these headings in the green shade are basically working here as in the stimulus. That means in the context that what are the issues going on with respect to these four main categories. Number one is climate, second is rapid economic development, third is lack of regulations, and fourth is rapid population growth, right? So in this context, if you just see under the and one more thing, look at the map very carefully or this diagram very carefully. Here all the topics are interrelated with each other. That means the regulation will not only impact the rapid population growth, ultimately that is going to impact the rapid economic development, which is not at all regulated, we have seen, and ultimately the entire complex is going to affect the climate system, right? So for example, let's start with the rapid population growth. Of course, India is struggling with the population increase, hence the development of watershed, increase in electricity and water demand, construction of river dikes, construction of dam, decrease of sand supply, drain water to beaches, and ultimately the tourism purpose or the other encroachment has led to the population increases in the coastal areas, right? Now, when the regulation from the government side or the official side is lacking in its due diligence, so that means that regulation is ultimately coming up in the actions like illegal mining, tree trimmings, damping construction, demand rise of construction materials, right? And here the theft of construction materials like the sand is like the gold on the coastal sides, and that sand is absolutely pure and the demand in the black market is very high, therefore that sand is also used in the illegal construction sites, right? Then sand extraction from seabed or coast, water quality deterioration, soil pollution, rapid economic development, it is saying the port construction of coastal structures like hotels and other tourism infrastructure, channel dredging, increase in wave heights, right? Talking about the climate change, ultimately it is affecting because, like, let's say the untreated water is straight away going to the oceans, right? It is rising the chemical levels, and it is actually affecting the coral reefs, coral growths, the sea vegetations, dunes, storm ridges, etc., right? And then when we are doing the campfires, bonfire, and whatsoever, and we are trying not to keep our coast clean. So ultimately we are giving a negative contribution towards the environment deterioration, which is working for the positive for the economic, also the environmental deterioration. In this manner, ultimately sea level rise, temperature rise, and the increase in the temperature of the oceans and sea waters levels, and hence the classical conditions of the cyclone formation are coming up, right? So in this manner we have to just look at this topic, and ultimately we need to see that what is the issue involved and why are we reading it. The topic has come because, as I said, that it is the ENCOIS that has carried out a coastal vulnerability assessment for Indian coast at states level. This is important because here we can see that carrying out such vulnerability index is giving us a scope of being proactive. Proactive means any sort of disaster which might be there, we are already making ourselves efficient and capable of fighting with that in advance, right? And if we are working finely and all the coastal ecosystem is absolutely working perfectly, there is no issue, then ultimately we are not leaving any kind of room for the disasters or any kind of climate or coastal vulnerability situations or effects to come up, right? So this is basically the idea. So what is the coastal vulnerability in this sense? The coastal vulnerability is a special concept that identifies people and places that are susceptible to disturbances, right, resulting from coastal hazards. That means we are identifying the people and their activities within the time and space which might bring the disturbances at some point of time due to the negligence, due to the overriding with the demand of the natural ecosystem needs and desires, and ultimately taking out the benefits more than what it should be taken out. So that means that we are disturbing the natural balance, and that balance is transforming into imbalance, and ultimately any sort of potential disasters we are inviting at our end. This is the coastal vulnerability. Vulnerability means measuring something in advance before it is happening. Simple. Then hazards in the coastal environment such as coastal storms, sea level rise, and erosion pose significant threats to coastal physical, economical, and social system issues. For example, you might have heard that Goa is a beautiful state and it is almost the number one destination in the country for the beach lovers, right? For the beautiful beaches, for the the mountains and beaches side by side, and the natural ecosystem there, and the clean beaches, and the government policies of inviting tourism and creating that positive environment by having the international tourism promoted at international level in such a good level. So ultimately the tourist ecosystem is perfectly developed in Goa. But do you know that the North Goa, the major beach belts areas, for example, Candolim, Kalangut, Baga, Arapura, Arambol, and the further north is suffering from the, or it is facing the quality water or the pure water drinking water facilities issue. That means the clean water which is worth of drinking and other purposes, the shortage has started being felling there because the water level has gone down due to the non-scientific taking out of the water and ultimately using it for the commercial activities without leaving the scopes or paying the taxes to the government so that the water issues can be covered up on time. I've personally seen there that the tanks, the kuwa, the tanks are generally gets dried up in the month of February or March, and they remains dried up by the time April and May has come, and then May, ultimately May end brings the monsoon, and that's how the water, with the help of monsoon, the water level starts coming up. So it is basically an issue that in such a state or in the heavy tourist attractive state in Goa, and especially the main tourist belt, that is facing the water shortages in there. And ultimately if the water level is going down, my friend, it is also a scope of disaster because the level of the earth on that ultimate part is getting hollow, and anytime that part of the surface of the earth might get like in settled down, and some kind of disaster might be there. This was actually given as a precautionary warning by the geologists who were working in Goa more than 20 years back, that this kind of non-scientific exploitation of water from the watered land, from the underground water, is creating a problem, or it will create a problem in the days to come, right? Now, the coastal vulnerability index, it is actually determining the coastal risks due to future sea level rise based on the physical and geological parameters for the Indian coast, right? So that means geological and physical parameters that might add to this problem of coastal vulnerability. So that is why this index has been carried out, right? And the this index uses the relative risk that physical changes will occur as sea level rises, quantified based on parameters like, right? That means that what will be the changes in the coastal areas, if or what has been covered in the index. So the changes might be because of the tidal range, right? Wave heights, coastal slope, coastal elevation, and shoreline change rate, geomorphology, historical rate of relative sea level changes. So that means that these are the changes which are slower in nature, and general people or public, they do not give that much concentration to that part. In that sense, the scientific studies are very important, that will give us the real picture by measuring the things at minutest and scientific ways, or through the scientific level. So for example, the coastal elevation and coastal slope, we believe that this is basically a natural, beautiful natural landscape, and we might come up with a resort, but we do not understand that that slope is basically for some reason. If that reason is being disturbed, so that is basically to allow the water to go down, and if we are disturbing that, then water logging will be a problem in the city, and ultimately if the water does not find any kind of escape, that will bring in the floods. And at one side, for example, you have the mountains, Western Ghats I'm talking about, then ultimately where people are going to escape, that is a problem, right? So in this manner, the wave height is also an issue. We start constructing shacks on the beaches for the tourism purposes. We start constructing the resorts, coming up with the big projects like resorts, and they are given clearance without any kind of environment impact assessment outcome to be taken into consideration at serious level. Then what happens, that what we have seen during the tsunami period, during the cyclones period, that many such resorts have been damaged. So it is posing threats to the physical infrastructure as well as human and social community within the areas, right? Now, this coastal multi-hazard vulnerability mapping, right? This is what this entire index is going to create. That means that this multi-hazard vulnerability mapping, they will be coming up. So it will also carried out using above mentioned parameters, the parameters we have been talking about. Which kind of parameters? That the coastal elevation issues, right? The issues like the sea level change, the coastal slope, coastal elevation, shoreline change, right? And here, if we have seen that it has also delineated that Gujarat's 124 coastal kilometers is going to get affected, or 5.36%. Maharashtra 11 kilometer is going to affect, right? Karnataka, Goa 48 kilometers, Kerala 15 kilometers, Tamil Nadu 65 kilometers, Andhra Pradesh 6 kilometers, Odisha 37, Lakshadweep Island 1 kilometer, and Andaman 24 kilometers. That means none of the coastal states in India under the coastal vulnerability index are found safer, right? The coastal part, even if it is 1 kilometer, it is somewhere the or the anthropogenic activities have disturbed the natural ecosystem or natural geological setting, right? Means the coastal rise, slopes, elevations, the sand concentration, right, etc. So this is the thing it has actually talked about. So here, multi-hazard vulnerability mapping also carried out using parameters like sea level change rate, shoreline change rate, high resolution coastal elevation, extreme water level, tide gauges, etc. Right? So this is very important to take a look and understand this, that these parameters were synthesized to derive the composite hazard zones that can be inundated along the coastal low-lying areas due to extreme flooding events. That means ultimately we want ourselves to be prepared so that all the parameters we can actually analyze and come up with a comprehensive plan in which the policies can target those issues that are affecting the elements we have already discussed, right? So the significance of the CVI, what could be? Here, these vulnerability assessments can be useful information for coastal disaster management and building resilient coastal communities, simply because these studies are not being conducted just for the sake of studying. These are conducting because in the western coast and in the eastern coast we have high concentration of people living in these zones, and not only people, civilians, we also have many critical installations and these ports, right? For example, we have great tourism related infrastructure, we have ports, we have space research centers, we also have the testing range sites, right? So here this issue is important because the coastal disaster management, this pro approach will definitely will be helping it, right? Because India has a coastline of 17,516.6 kilometers, as you know, right? And 6,100 kilometers of mainland coastline plus coastline of 1,197 kilometers of Indian islands, touching 13 states and union territories. So it's such a vast area, right? And in the coastal districts, what we have almost, as I said, 250 million people living within 50 kilometers of the coast, right? That means from the coast to the far away 50 kilometers, right? And for the ocean, for the waves to reach there up to the range of 50 kilometers is not a big deal, right? 3,600 fishing villages we have, 3,600, right? Then 12 major ports we have, as I said, and 185 minor ports we have. Very important, right? 4,000, or let's say 4,100 plus kilometers of mangroves we have. We also have coral set up in Gulf of Kutch. We have coral set up in Gulf of Mannar, right? And then we have the corals in the islands regions. So these natural and anthropogenic the infrastructure, the social infrastructure, it is critical for us, right? Many economic installations are also there. So this coastal vulnerability impact or index report is important for us to have the advanced information that how can we save our coast, right? So just take a look at the international or Indian national just a second, I think recording is stopped. Yeah, it's working fine. Yeah. So Indian National Center for Ocean Information Services, that is INCOIS. Let's just know about this, that what is this? So it is nothing but it is an autonomous organization under the Ministry of Earth and Sciences. Simply, INCOIS is the autonomous organization under the Ministry of Earth and Sciences. It is located in Hyderabad and was established in 1999. And it is a unit of Earth System Science Organization, that is ESSO, New Delhi. No problem. The ESSO operates as an executive arm of the Ministry of Earth Sciences for its policies and programs, and it is mandated to provide the best possible ocean information and advisory services to society, industry, government agencies, and the scientific community through sustained ocean observations and constant improvement through systematic and focused research. Ultimately, it is giving you through so many things like the ocean observation and improvement in the way information is collected, and hence a comprehensive idea is provided to the industry, government agencies, and people or society, so that they can plan the things according to the demand of the nature. the scope nature has provided, because nature, if the nature is looking for the settlement, it will take its own space. Doesn't matter what sort of infrastructure you have created, it's nature space, nature will take it. So therefore this coastal vulnerability index is highly important, and this year you might face some question about this coastal vulnerability index, right? So it was having two different organization, and we had to look at it from the prelims perspective, and from the mains perspective this analysis is also important.